You're smarter than I am. I wasn't even watching that ball. Something called Africom, you know, and it's growing. I don't know how effective they are. They went after one guy named Joseph Kony in the Lord's Resistance Army because everybody has said he's a bad guy, and they never found him. He's still there. Anyway, the Chinese. The Chinese are coming next. Chinese.
I was going to ask, you were talking about leaving Africa and you went to Italy, but back to Spain. Barbara and I were there when Franco was in charge.
Wow.
Now, I'll tell you, you didn't mess around. They had little guys on the corner with black hats, and one of our groups made some side remark. They put him in jail. They don't fool around over there. But the point was, then we left and we flew to Africa. And when we went into the airport, they took our passports and turned us loose. we didn't get our passports till we were going to...
So you had to be good in Africa too.
That's right.
So you didn't say anything bad about Franco.
That's for sure.
Wow. It's true sometimes. When I first went to Kenya, people wouldn't talk to me on the phone with their name. They'd call me up and they'd say, you know who this is. And when I do the interview, because I knew their voice, you know, they wouldn't talk on a public transportation. Now everybody talks. Everybody talks. And they say funny things about the president. Okay. So people, your moment. Are Africans winners or losers in globalization with regard to the movement of people, given the little information I've given you? What do you think? Are they winners or losers? ¿Están ganando o están perdiendo?
I think the balance is negative.
In a balance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you cannot put everybody in the same boat.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Oh. I would say losers.
Hmm? Are they win? In the people thing, in globalization, Africans come out ahead or behind? So far from what you really know on this.
Behind.
Behind, okay. You got a vote for in the middle and behind? You got any people saying they're ahead? No? Have a vote down? How many people said, what was your vote?
I was going to say ahead, but my question is, what do you mean with regard to the number of people? Because I'm seeing a lot of leaving and small amounts of coming into the company. So my question is just like, is movement of people inwards or outwards?
Both.
Both. I would say that they're winning because there's.
What?
I could say that they're winning because there is a lot of movement.
Okay.
You know, globalization is a part of.
All right.
You know, colonialization and things. So I would say.
I'm not going to listen to your answer and say, well, what I think. I'm not going to tell you. I mean, I have an opinion, but yours is just as valid. What do you think? What's your name? How come everybody has the same name?
I'd say they're probably losers.
Losers, in what sense?
It seems like there's more people going out than coming in, and it's like a negative.
How many people think, I mean, I realize it's a little artificial because we just have a short time break, but how many people think in terms of globalization, the movement of people, that Africa comes out ahead in terms of a benefit for Africans? Raise your hand. Okay? How many people think it's not working in their behalf? Wow. Why not?
It's like a sellout, you know. I mean, you get some things, but it's a false sense of getting better.
Okay. Somebody else? Somebody who hasn't had a chance to say something on this. Backbenchers. What, did you guys break up or something? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a negative impact because, well, let me use an economic term. In economics, we have a term called brain running, which is a lot of people who actually live in this country are leaving and they're getting better lives, but they are contributed to that country, not to the country that they belong. So, using that term, they're not doing something good for the country.
That's very interesting. Any other comments? Yes. Sitting here.
Again, I feel it's not black and white. It should be. It depends. The countries that are relatively stable and successful, the ones that are actually building themselves up, they, even if they're not necessarily benefiting now, they will eventually benefit once they build up their infrastructure and have good enough facilities and industry on their own parts, then brain drain will slow down or possibly cease, whereas tourism will bring in lots of money. Whereas those countries that aren't moving forward, the ones that are staying in place or even falling behind or falling apart, I mean, not only will they potentially see no more tourism, but they're also suffering from the brain drain. So they get no benefits or limited benefits.
So it's a matter of time, and eventually these countries will build up, and then it'll be less brain drain.
Well, no, not necessarily.
I thought that's what you said.
I said those countries that are building up, some of them are. And
Yes.
those will, even if they're not benefiting now, they will.
They
Those
will.
countries that aren't,
The ones that aren't,
they don't.
okay, yes.
Well, I would disagree because then I would give the example of Nigeria. They have the biggest economy in Africa, and at the same time they have 60% poverty. So it's like, of course, I mean, corruption is huge. So I would, when we said that and we talk about the African people rather than the African governments or the African economy, then I would say, yes, they are not benefiting because corruption and the money's not going to them. So like, it's not well distributed. So I would say they're not. They're losers. The African people.
Well, you mentioned Nigeria, for example, in the Boni area, which produces the oil. They've been in conflict with the Nigerian government for a couple of decades, saying, look, just give us some of the money that, you know, that you guys get. And they never got it. Until recently, I think they got it. It's a good point. Yeah. There's no easy answer. I agree with you. Yes.
We've got about 10 minutes.
Okay. Globalization number 2, money and investments. What do you think of when you see that? If you know your flags, I don't know any Chinese. Anybody know any Chinese? Can you say something in Mandarin or something?
I can ask you what your name is.
You can?
Yeah, I can ask you what your name is.
Huh?
I can ask you what your name is.
Say this is Chinese.
I can't say that.
Never mind. China is embracing Africa today. Why? Real quick, we gotta wrap this up. Yes, back in.
Because the periphery, or the formerly periphery nations like China now is transitioning to a like secondary level of development, and consequently all of their industries, where they're like manufacturing and like basic goods for construction, whatever, resource exploitation, is moving to China, so that they can improve their own economy to the next level of development.
The sucking straw. Just like the colonialists, in a sense. You're right. And it's moving out of the periphery, and as Wallerstein says, it's really getting towards the center. It's doing more economic growth than the United States at the moment. Chinese workers are pouring into Africa. Really, they're everywhere. Dr. Nanan can give you anecdotal stories about what he saw, and I've seen some of the same thing. The Chinese deal, here's the Chinese deal. We build you ports, roads, etc. You give us your oil, not give us, but sell it, and the minerals at a good price. And by the way, when it comes to human rights abuses, we will really not pay any attention. Okay? So if you got a hard government that's got some minerals and needs ports, that's a perfect deal. Angola loves them. Sudan loves them. The government of Sudan is under indictment in the International Criminal Court. The president goes to some country, he's going to get arrested. Because of genocide in Sudan, China sucked out a lot of minerals, a lot of oil, never said anything about the human rights. Kept blocking help. So I'm going to skip over this question and answer, but you got to think, is China good for Africans or not? Just take a quick vote on minimal information here. Raise your hand if you think China is good. Remember, they're building ports, roads, and everything. You talk to government officials in Kenya and other places, and they love them. They like them. How many people think Africans are winners when it comes to China? Raise your hand.
That's a different question.
One. How many people think they're losers? Why? Just shout it out. A couple points. Just shout them out.
being
Selling your
used.
soul to the devil.
Huh?
It's like selling your soul to the devil,
Oh, it's a kind of a spiritual thing, okay.
maybe.
Maybe? Anybody else? I thought that was Robert Jackson in Mississippi doing that. Okay,
In the long run.
Anybody else?
From the infrastructure.
Benefits of going to the rich.
okay, we gotta move on. Money and investments. Non-African investors can go in quickly, but that means they can come out quickly too. We always talk about globalization being a movement of economies interlapping. What it gets down to is investments. Money, buying things, selling things, investing. You can push a button in New York and have $10 million invested in a place like Singapore, for example. Real case. You can push it again and get it out. When they started some crazy economic policies, somebody pushed a button and they pulled it out and their stock market collapsed, their whole economy was a mess. So it can go in and out. You have other investments in Africa today, but there are winners and losers in this case. They're usually looking for skilled labor. Not always. Ports and stuff, you can do unskilled labor. But the money is in the skilled laborers, and the unskilled often get left behind. Last point, ideas and culture. Another part of globalization. Dr. Nyland reminded me when we had dinner the other night that what he saw was hip-hop coming out of New York being translated in Mozambique in different ways. I'm actually going to show you something on that. Something that caught my eye. It's a different kind of hip-hop. It's Arab hip-hop, which I've never seen before. They're adapting hip-hop. That's the point. They're adapting Americans in their own way. You want to get up? You want to join them? It's So, another concept, I'm going to skip over it real quickly, but diffusion. It means, one idea is going into another culture. See? It's a big theory in anthropology. Where do cultures pick this stuff up? In the age of globalization, my question to you is, where do ideas originate? If you can trace back ideas, it's fascinating, but be careful. You may only dig down 6 feet and somebody else comes along and digs down 7. In Mali, I love this case. I learned it when I was doing a PhD and I just checked it yesterday. It's the disputable case, some of the details. But basically, an anthropologist went into Mali, a Western anthropologist, and got it wrong. He started interviewing the Dogon. He was there for years. He starts talking about astronomy, like the Aztecs, and he finds out that they know all this stuff. He was thinking, man, this is not diffusion. You got two sources of information here. They're doing the same thing the Aztecs were doing. They know the same stories and everything. This is amazing. Where'd you get this stuff? Well, we've always known that stuff. Turns out, I think it was 30 years earlier, there had been some anthropologists coming through there and talked to them and told them all about the Aztec and astronomy, and it became part of their culture. They don't know that stuff, and they don't agree on it among themselves. So where do ideas come from? Who starts what? There's a band, which I have the record, you can buy it. Sierra Leone All-Star Refugee Band. They're really good. And I started listening to it, and I like Bob Marley a lot. And I'm thinking, this sounds like Bob Marley reggae. So I started thinking, there were refugees in a refugee camp during the Sierra Leone Civil War. They got bored, so they formed a band. And they're pretty good, actually. Sounds like reggae. So my question was, did these guys copy Bob Marley? Or did Bob Marley get his stuff, way back from West Africa? And then Are they the originals over here doing the original stuff? Or is it Bob Marley? And then I got to think, wait a minute. And pretty soon I'm thinking like a ping pong. You know, I come from Mississippi, and we are the home of the blues, no matter who says what. Okay? But there's a lot of people in New York and Chicago, they're claiming the same thing. They're saying, no, this is like kind of Chicago stuff, and it came down to you guys. Yeah, you had a few guys, but we took it and we made it better. We are the origins. Do not get that wrong. But I don't know who started reggae. I really don't. One last thing. Are you aware of the Arab Revolution? Be real honest with me. Raise your hand if you're not. Okay, I'm glad somebody's not. In 2011, the Arabs, mostly young people, rose up in revolution in Egypt, Tunisia, Bahrain, even in Syria. The Tunisian revolution is the poster child because they're the only ones still going what you call a real revolution that got a democratic government. It's got some problems, but it's there. Now, millions of Arabs rose up in 2011, protested against repressive regimes. Their demands were not Western-based. This is an important point. Their demands were not Western-based. Their demands were not Western-based. Superficially, it sounds like the same thing. Their demands were justice for them. Justice for them, for the Africans. What do they want? No more repression, freedom of speech. No more torture, no dictatorships. These are young people, just like you guys. They were out on the street. I don't call that Western-influenced ideas. Remember, I've lived in Africa for a long time, so I have a great sympathy and maybe a bias. I call that human-based demands. International human-based demands. We're not the center of the universe. The Western mind is not the center of the universe. So, I'm giving you my opinion on this.
Tonight, love breaks down in paradise. Tonight,
this is the last thing you're going to see. It's a 7-minute video. Just got permission from Dr. Husky, and I called all your fellow students and parents, and they say you can stay. This is the last thing.
احنا مش عايزين هذا النظام. احنا بنقول قفلت كل طرق التغيير السلمي. النهارده احنا بنفتح طريق التغيير على القريه التونسيه. ونقول النهارده ممكن يكون شيء
This is Egypt.
لكن دي بدايه مرحله انا اعتقد ان هي مرحله
whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're an atheist, you will get back to your goddamn rights, and we will have our rights, one way or the other. You will never outside you. Sunrise on broken streets, like a kid is local. One land of burning streets. Oh, and you know, paradise no built to last. Got scatters like a shotgun blast. Let's meet by the barricades. Beneath the rocket center, falling rain. If you think you've lost the war, then don't leave. I need you more.